my question is about the first civilizations that were here.
Yes.
Being from the Panhandle, I never heard that until I went to Maryland.
Right.
And so, is there something you can speak a little bit more about that? Because my understanding initially was that that the land bridge that you spoke of, and that the people came over, and that's how we all came to be here.
Right. Yeah. So archaeologists and primarily old white men pretty much establish a narrative, right? And what they tend to do is, if they find something that fits that narrative that they have already established, they say, okay, that's how you got here, right? Or this was who was here first. But then they all of a sudden come up with bones, or they come up with other evidence. It's like staring them right in the face. And they're like, what's that big African head right there, black head right there? Doesn't that look like the people in... don't worry about that. You ignore it.
Sure.
Right. You ignore it. You ignore the obvious. And if it's too obvious, you destroy it. So they found bones that preceded the exodus from across the Bering Straits, right? And those bones, when they measure, it came up African. Then they start finding artifacts that indicate, and again, this is where art production comes in. You find ceramic pieces, you find drums, you find other bones, you find signs of people being there. Which indicates the fact that there's a longer timeline than already established. Also, you have the plates, right? The geological plates that were closer and have spread apart through time. So it was easier to get to this part of the world because everything was either connected or it was really close. So we had the technology to get across the water, right? That's the thing they don't want you to know. We had the thing. Thor Heyerdahl proved the fact. He made some reed boats and moved across the Atlantic and made it to the Americas, okay? But we had better technology than that. We had wooden boats, right? And you know who understood that, ironically enough? Christopher Columbus. Because he lived in Guinea, right? Equatorial, he lived in Guinea in Africa before he was on the expedition to colonize and place genocide on America, right? So the ability to move back and cross was already established, and in several logs of captains, they talked about seeing Africans leaving the Americas when they were coming up. Right? Already we were here for a long time. And our exoduses were, were back to back. The Nubians, the Phoenicians, who already had circumnavigated the planet. Then you had Abu Bakr II, who was the brother of Mansa Musa, who did an expedition across the Atlantic and never returned. But you find evidence of, but Balboa said in his chronicles, hey, there's a mosque up there. And I see a bunch of black people with, they all, they look like the people from Mali, because that's who they were. These are the people who made it, right? Well, they weren't there for warfare. They were there for, we're going to exchange in culture. We're going to exchange, and we're going to get together as a people, right? So that's why you see that. So yeah, we were already, it was already established. See, this is the thing. When everywhere they went, literally, right, they found us. We were already there. Some of the oldest people that circumnavigated were the Twa, little people, right? Shout out for the short people. So the Twa, for a classic example of that, is the Twa were in Ireland. The little people. The leprechaun.
Tell about St. Patrick.
Okay, there we go. You know where I'm going. So when we know about Saint when you do St. Patrick's, right? Don't celebrate that, please, because that's celebrating genocide. So they say, why did St. Patrick, why do we celebrate St. Patrick's Day? Oh, it's because St. Patrick came along and chased all the black snakes out and chased the devil out of Ireland. That's why he did it, boy, oh boy, okay. But guess what? Just read a little bit. There were no black snakes in Ireland. There were no snakes at all. So this is a metaphor for something. What are you talking about? You're the black snake. Because we followed and worshiped, we worshiped the snake, but we had a following and an understanding of metaphysics, right? The Naga. Another word was the Naga. So when they talk about chasing the black snakes, they're talking about a genocide. St. Patrick was a Roman general and governor. And his job was genocide of all of the little people in Ireland. So when you talk about the leprechauns, they're talking about you. Talk about the leprechauns, the little people, the trois. So we were there, man. We've been here. We were in Europe. We were here, and we're just older. I mean, the fathomness of how old we really are, is in your bones, and it's in our hair. We understand this, right? Thank you for that question.
Tasha and I want to say thank you for coming out and educating us and taking a moment to let us know about our ancestral history and how it came along and what it was all about. I want to take the time to thank you, Ken, for putting together this program for us to get educated on what happened previous to us. With relation to symbolism and something symbolic that you had up there, I think you said something about it being doors. Mm-hmm. I'm from South Florida, and what the metaphor of that for me is, those are our bar doors. Yes. It is to keep criminals or want-to-be thieves out of your house. Wow. Well, the flip side to slavery is, that's us on the inside looking out. Mm. And now in America, it's metaphoric of we are barring you back in your same society because now you barred yourself from your people. Wow. Because who's the person that you think is going to steal from you if it isn't our neighbor? And if you're in a black community, who is that neighbor? That's right. So who are you protecting yourself from? Mm. Okay. Second point I'd like to ask about, with relation to spirituality and beads on your neck, Yamaya, Jeremiah, Legwa, Ashwa.
Yes. So yes, I'm a priest of Legba, and that is
yes,
Ashe. So we are. So it's another one of the spiritualities that made it over through the transatlantic system, right? So basically, let's understand this, right? Christianity, every religion, you created first. But before religion, which is the patriarchal system, the African spirituality of connected to earth and the understanding and the scientific aspects of that was already established. And so with the Ashanti, for example, they have an Akan system. Everybody has different names for the creator, but it's just basically how it is. You have the creator, the source of all things. Then you have, under that, you have a higher order of spirits that are matriarchal, right? Then you have the angels, right? Or what we would call angels, what we call Orisha, or they call the Akan spirits, or the Ptah, or other names for this system, right? So you have these different elementals that are equated with the forces of nature, right? And then you have the ancestors, and then they have you. You are divine because of Ori, the thing inside of you that holds your destiny. The trick is you just don't know what that destiny is yet when you come. You have no memory. So that little mark right here, that little lip part right, this little there, nope, you can't seem to question, what is that, right? We don't even question it. Well, that's when the maker presses right here with and boop, no memory. Pushes you through, You're in the womb 9 months. 9 is a significant number. You come out ready to go. But we have a system that allows you to guide you through that. Your ancestors are there to guide you. The creators, the aspects of the creator are there to guide you, right? Okay. You look at the Catholic Church. They mimic that. They just mimicked it, right? You look at Islam. It was matriarchal before it was patriarchal. Allah was actually a deity.
Deity, that's the word I was trying to use.
Allah was a deity, a female deity. And her symbol was a crescent star in the moon. So Muhammad just said, okay, we're going to take out, this is the audacity, we're going to take out this goddess and we're going to take out that goddess. We're going to leave this one. We'll take her out too. Just leave the name. We're good. Now, what about the Catholic Church? So every single place that old churches, old mosques, old temples, once was a goddess temple. Your face was on that. Right? Your face was on that. So the biggest goddess temple was the Vatican. The Vatican is on top of the largest temple. So there's some parts of the Vatican you can't even go into. It's guarded. You look and say, well, it's just a bunch of messes, a bunch of rocks, but you can't get in there. Why? Because the bones of your ancestors are in there. Now this is the part, right? So they talk about our system being demonic, right? You're not supposed to pray to you're not supposed to respect your ancestors. I didn't say pray to them. Give reverence to your ancestors. But we do it all the time, right? Hear that door open. He's like, oh, that's just auntie, right? Right? We recognize it, right? But we pay respects to that which is who have come before us. That's number one. Now, then they tell you, bones and all that, and the voodoo that's evil. Oh my God, don't do that. That's demonic. Oh, forget that. Well, guess what? You go to any Catholic church, any kind of old church, we're gonna find somewhere in the corner somebody's bones. Okay, buried right up under there. I thought it was demonic. You're not supposed to be messing around with people's bones. What you gotta do? They ain't gonna tell you the truth. Why would your oppressor tell you the truth? Right? I want you to drink the poison. I'm not gonna give you fresh water. Right? So, Vatica was the goddess of the dead. Vatican. See? And that's why the Pope still prays to the black Madonna and child. Right? Not the white Madonna and child, the black you. Okay? And so when Putin opened up all of those paintings in Russia, and it's all them black people, they're like, hey, yeah. But that's not what, they lie. They've been lying to you, right? Interestingly enough, even though sometimes when we know the lie, we still, well, I'm going to just hang on to this just a little bit longer. I was like, why? It's not serving you. Right? And I'm not going to, I won't go into the cognitive dissonance too much, but yes. So that system, I decided, and others, so you find this system in the Caribbean, you find it in Jamaica, you find it in Cuba, you find it, you find all these systems here in Florida. So hoodoo practices are not demonic. Hoodoo practices are hygienical. That's how we kept things clean. You sweep from the back to the front. There's a reason why you do that, right? Why they tell you, don't sweep what? Don't sweep your feet. Why? It's bad luck. But in Africa, the shaman would come and he would have 2 brooms. And if someone in the room stole something, they would use the broom. You have to walk through it. If you walk through it, when the brooms cross your neck and nothing happened, you're innocent. And I've seen this, and it's like literally the broom, you're guilty, the broom all of a sudden latch a hold of your neck and you drag the criminal right on out. And the old way of saying it is like, don't shoot my feet, I might go to jail. That's where it comes from. And you would go to jail. That's how they would find out. You see, and so we swept from the back to the front. We used pot liquor as a way of spiritually cleaning the floors with other herbs, other means to make sure that we have prosperity, make sure that you are hygienically clean. Who knows life everlasting? Ever heard that herb? Ever heard of life everlasting? Life everlasting. So the old folks used to do life. I got a whole bunch of it. Finally, life everlasting was a cure-all for respiratory or any problems. But you go down any highway, you can see life everlasting, just growing, right? I'll point it out to you. I'll show it to you. But you know, it's like our ancestors understood and knew what to go in the backyard to go get. Right? I know my grandmother did. She always used to give me some concoction when I was sick. It was like, you know, right? But in a few hours, I was right as a mail. So these hoodoo practices, these spiritual ways, they are ensuring the fact that you are connected to earth, that you are connected to the unseen, and you are staying and keeping in regarding to day-to-day life and living. That's what it's all about. They gave you, and I'll just say it, they gave you, and you know, it was not, you didn't choose, your ancestors didn't choose it, it was forced upon them. Again and again and again, to the point where you just said, okay, I'm a Christian. After I've seen like 20 of my relatives get killed, okay. What are you, Christian? Right. So you have to understand and know and understand where this is coming from. And understand that a lot of the practices that we do in the South or in the church are actually of African practice. You know, back in the day we used to do the circle chant, right? We stopped doing it because here come pastors saying, we don't do that anymore. It's like, you know, you should though, pastor. But we have like we go in a counterclockwise circle. And this is the circle chant. The circle chant was there because you ward off negativity. Spirally, things move in a spiral. You see a hurricane, it's a spiral. You look at plants, you see a spiral. So we moved in a spiral, right? We hit the earth because the magnetic energy of the earth comes up into your body and regulates. And if you sit in front of a tree with your bare feet, like our old folks understood back in the day, it will recalibrate you. So they tell you, oh, you know, I don't, you know, so they got you wearing your shoes, they got you scared of the woods, they got you scared of doing your practices and the things that help keep you healthy. Don't eat watermelon, eat this spaghetti, eat this ding dong and wing wang. You know, how many times you see it on the bus? I remember sometimes you walking, you see the, you know, we have become so attached. Our people are sitting there, our mothers are sitting there with Doritos in their baby's hands. Shove it and eat your breakfast. What? Doritos? You gotta hurry up and go get the school breakfast, which is sugar. Then you go to lunch, which is more sugar. Right? The detachment. But those hoodoo practices kept you understanding how to stay healthy. That's why grandma could smoke, chew tobacco, drink moonshine, and live to 100. Because she was out there with her bare feet, right? You know what I'm talking about. With her bare feet, out there in the garden, in those woods, right? she's rolling down the street, you huffing and puffing. Oh, Grandma, you going too fast. What? Grandma's healthy. Right. Okay, next question. I'm sorry.
Okay, so first of all, I want to make an announcement. Please feel free to get some food. It's there. We gotta get it all out. So by all means, please get some. And with that said, I wanted to discuss. For me, I often the experiences that I had with actual like Africans when I met them were generally negative, and their viewpoints of Black Americans were also negative. What do you think contributes to that?
Come on, Elizabeth. Plain and simple, right? They give us a narrative of Africans. Africans are given a narrative of us. Oh, now you got to be careful now. Now, when you come to this country, make sure you stay away from some of the Black Americans. I'm not saying all of them are. But if you want to stay here, you should really just kind of stay in your lane. I mean, that's what they tell you, right? And so they sink in the narrative. They show them films. I'm not kidding you. And African told me this. They show them films of how violent we are, how destructive we are, how ignorant we are, right? But meanwhile, we're getting the same indoctrination, right? Tarzan, right? How many of y'all don't remember Tarzan? I know you don't remember, but we remember. I remember Tarzan, right? And my little self on this black and white, just, get him, Tarzan, get him, you know? I'm like, what? Here's this man, you know, in the middle of the jungle, right? I'm the king of the jungle. What? Wait a minute. What? So there's a narrative, right? So we're told that, you know, the Africans are just a bunch of people up in trees. And they're ignorant. And they don't know what they're doing. Right? And they're told we're dangerous. They don't know what we're doing. They don't talk about, that's why you create space to talk. So the Africans don't know about the inventions you have and that you created. Right? That a black man invented the cell phone. A black, you know, we turn on Zoom, better take a black woman, because that's who invented that technology to do that. Radar systems, the gas mask. World War I, World War II, we would be dying from gas exposure. Once a black man invented the gas mask, the street light, the suit, the air conditioning, the lights. Oh, that's what I'm worried about. Nothing. He didn't do it. He hired other people. And it happened to be a black man. You wouldn't have, but the filaments and the system was created by that. They don't know that part. We don't know about this part, about the infrastructure, about the technology, about the Moors. And some of them don't even know about that because they were Christianized and they were colonized and they were put into a fear-based situation, right? It's up to us to sit us down and say, hey, that's not true. And I did that one time. It's like, well, you know, isn't it true that you Africans have tails and jump in the tree? That is not true. I was like, that is not true. I was like, yeah, well, you know, guess what? What you just said about us is not true either. Yeah. So just get in there, you know. Relatives should be real, right? So we treat each other, you start the respect with cohort. This is the situation. Get mad. If you get mad, get mad. It's okay. Right? When you go over to Ghana, you know, it's open because Kwame and Nkrumah understood the magnificence of what African Americans do. Right? They understood. So that's why you have that.
I want to say something in reference to what he was saying, and
yes,
I want to say something and see if you agree with it. Would you not say, because of how we were taught here in the United States,
yes, sir,
do we not see things from a Eurocentric lens versus, let's just say, in other words, everything that was brought to our culture, or anybody that actually It used to be when I first came, when I was a kid, we had black teachers, and they would, they would teach you, your culture. There are some things that they knew that they would impart to you. But as I got, before I even got in the 4th grade, I can remember being the only black person in the class. I came up in segregation.
I did too.
Okay. So,
how old are you?
I'm 63.
62.
Oh, okay. So in that, I'm looking at how first of all, when it comes down to knowledge, when it comes down to school, someone has to be approved.
Right.
The information has to be approved before it gets assimilated.
Right.
All right. So because of that, everything that we're taught has to be approved. And then what we're taught, we see things from an American standpoint,
Sure.
or a Eurocentric lens.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I just wanted to contribute to that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But my question was, how significant, from your perspective, do we see? I see you talked a lot about West Africa.
Yeah.
So how significant is West Africa in telling our story prior to slavery in reference to you said the Ashanti, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I've also noticed that the Ashanti is in scriptures, in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. One of the other tribes that were having some of the same issues or similarities that the Ashan was having was the Limba and the Igbo. Yeah. So my question is, what do you think is the significance of all of them giving reference to West Africa in involving the Atlantic slave trade? What do you think is the significance of all of them having that same parallel when it comes down to West Africa?
Are you referring to how all of them are related, or are all of them the reference of what's the significance of West Africa in itself?
Well, all of them have a story of West Africa being some kind of centralized area for whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, right. And I'm thinking the Atlantic slave trade had a lot to do with it.
Okay.
So,
I think I know what you. Okay. Let me. So the emphasis of those cultures is based upon the transatlantic slave trade, because that's where they could get to us primarily. You have to understand the geography of Africa. Africa's on a plateau. So there's just some places it was hard to get to. It was a great risk. So the first Europeans that really managed to get their boats strong enough to get around the Cape, so they got to go from Europe all the way down past, the Cape and up around, because that's the lowest point. And so they started with trade and then just start with war, right? There was this first introduction because they wanted resources, right? They needed resources when they first figured out through the Moors how to get there, right? Because remember that the whole flat Earth thing was real to them, and it was the Moors that we had maps. We already had maps, right? So when they finally get around to this part, and again, Christopher Columbus his father was a part of that Portuguese, starting a small colony. They needed the gold. They needed the salt. They needed the things that they had learned through the Moors to build their infrastructure in society, right? Because you got to remember now. I mean, the whole concept of how they were seeing the world was so but they were eating like mummies for cures. That's why you can't find so many mummies, because Europeans were like snatching them out and just like eating them. Right? So the emphasis of us understanding that part is because a lot of us came from that part, right? But in terms of the transatlantic, that last wave or last exodus of Africans. So that circular part, there's a circle, a current that goes from Africa to the United States. And so that's where they take that and they just went right over into the Americas and they come right back through that circle, okay? So yeah, the resources, the gold, the cotton, right? The rubber, the wood, all that was accessible from that region.
Are you familiar with the Berlin Conference of 1884?
Of course. So I mean, that was the conference. He's referring to a conference that in Berlin, all the European powers got together and said, we're going to cut up Africa for ourselves. No Africans were present at this conference, and they all said, we're going to. Germany, you take this. Dutch, you take this part. English, you take this part. And they had the military means and the might to do so. So all these, the making sure that they had resources, that they had gold. So the gold you see in England, you see all the gold on the crowns and the gold, a lot of it comes from elsewhere, right? Diamonds, the whole 9 yards, elsewhere. When I went to South Africa, they were like literally, I saw these like high hills, and I said, what are those high hills? He said, oh, those are gold hills. And I was like, what do you mean gold hills? Like after the machines, that's where the dirt is. And you're not allowed to go near it because there's still gold in there. There's still diamonds in there. But it's like, well, who owns those? Israel? British? Right, Italy? I said, what about the Africans? No. What do you mean, no? This is your land. Right. It's common sense, right? This is your land. Well, no, we do not. How in the hell did you do that? Think about it. How did you manage to convince me that my land was that negotiable, but I don't own it, but you do? And you can do whatever you want to on it. And I don't get anything from it. That's indoctrination, right? That's indoctrination. That's brainwashing. Right. And you just look up and you're like, there goes my gold, there goes my diamonds. Right. And so that's it right there. That's why we emphasize so much, because that's the accessible point. And there's a lot of stuff over there, man. There's a lot of stuff everywhere in Africa. Africa is very rich. It started in the Roman Empire. The Romans used that as a resource in the breadbasket, so they moved to North Africa, right? This is after Hannibal. Right? This is after Hannibal. That's another one, right? But it's always been a resource for European agendas. And if you lose that resource, and we're talking now time, you lose that resource, you are done.
France.
So the Congolese said, okay, we don't want your French currency. We don't need your language, and we don't need any support since you're not really giving us this support. Get out. What about the resources? We'll negotiate that later. And all of a sudden, miraculously, there's a coup. And a genocidal coup. Wow, just by coincidence.